All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of AI Powered Career Edge. I'm really excited to have Brian Cotter here with me today. So, Brian and I connected a little while ago, and I was completely blown away by how he's been able to take his 25 years in pre-sales tech and an immense amount of experience with fairly large companies and large clients. He's able to take that experience and translate it into something very practical that can be used in a repeated way by many people, whether they're in pre-sales or just in life in general. So there's more on that during our conversation. But with that, Brian, welcome to this episode.
Thank you, Yusuf. I appreciate the time. Looking forward to the conversation. And one of the things that is near and dear to my mind is the power of storytelling, not just to help you sell, but also as you kind of turn the lens on yourself and look in the mirror, kind of like, what is the story that you're telling about your life and how are you presenting that? And actually, are you living what you're presenting out in the real world? And that's one of the things that we'll get into a little bit more is the power of some of the technology we have allows you to kind of take a look from a different perspective and really see if you're in alignment to who you are, to who you want to become.
Yeah. So let's just use that to introduce yourself a little bit, gave the audience an overview of who you are and where you've been. And that was really brief. But if you want to just drill down and just tell your story in a succinct way for people to really get that you have around telling stories, sales, and then most importantly and most relevant is using AI as a mirror to create something that'll be helpful to others. So over to you, Brian. Tell us your story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I think it kind of starts back where when I came out of school, the economy wasn't that good. Like we're looking like, middle 90s, late 90s, where like the internet was coming about. All technology was changing, mainframe to client server to what became the internet. But I was a political science major, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew how to learn. And I knew how to meet people and kind of network and get the story together because I was a political science major. And with that being said, the first 2 years out of school, I was kind of like, what am I going to do in this new tech world? And I tried to do sales and I was good at it, but I really didn't like the front side of the shaking hands and kissing babies and demand generation. And the negotiation part was something that, I wasn't interested in. But in the middle of it, if there was a problem to solve or an opportunity to go after that we could solve with technology and then be able to kind of come back and show their future on the platform that I was selling, it really intrigued me. So that kind of started the pre-sales career with companies like BMC software that kind of rolled out the business service management, or going to Salesforce, which was about, on demand or cloud computing or subscription, or even going into Zuora, which was about this new way of buying and new monetization strategies around consumption. So my first better part of 16, 17 years of my really working career was led by these three people, Bob Beecham, Mark Benioff, and Teen Zhao, that had an unbelievable vision of the identity of the companies that they wanted to create. And all three of them really rolled down to, what is the story that you're going to tell the customers? What is the value? What is the narrative that someone can see their future on your platform or your offering? And so coming with a political science degree, I had a very significant insecurity of being technical or not. So I studied, I figured it out, and I got more technical, but there's always things that were changing. But the one thing that I always knew is I could take massive amounts of information and distill it down into 3 to 5 salient points. So Yusuf, you would sell on my behalf when I was gone. And that is a skill from discovery to root cause, meaning understanding where the pain is and then applying that pain to their desired outcomes and then crafting a narrative so they actually can see their problems being solved and the value that they could realize. And that is something that I've used from day one. And it's something that I've now applied with AI to not only help me and my teams and my teammates be able to get to a powerful story quickly, but if you think about what we do with companies, like we help them, they're here and they want to go here. Okay, cool. Then we have a swath of problems that are getting in the way. And then you have to architect some sort of strategy to help them achieve what they want. And interestingly enough, as AI has been coming on the last 3 to 5 years, I applied that 25 years of experience to myself, and I turned the lens and the mirror on me, and I started using AI to kind of look at a different question. The question wasn't, what do you want to do? What are you good at? It was more or less, what do you want to become? And that is really started this whole thing over the last 4.5, 5 years that I've been doing.
Yeah. So you have this hat in the background there. And why don't you tell the audience what it says? I want to live my standard. Awesome. And what does it say in the back?
It's actually an arrow graphic that tells the whole 283 story in one visual that I could. The way I was thinking about it is that storytelling happens in multiple areas, and I wanted to be able to show the story, tell the story, but also be able to whiteboard the story. And there's
Yeah.
a whole point about this that, we are on a journey and we have to figure out where to aim because we're the one that's in charge of our own happiness and where we want to go and what we want to become.
So before you tell us what 283 is, tell us how you got to it and how specifically you used AI to get to it. Tell us that story.
It goes back to a number of years ago where a friend of mine who unfortunately passed away when I was really young, he was one of the people that actually had that personality that he knew exactly who he was. And he was a fun kid, went to military school, 1 year of college, and said, I'm going to go out to Big Sky, Montana and ski and follow the dead. And the lesson that he taught me like 32 years ago is that in the world that has all these rules and conforming into what we should be, you really need to take a step back, look at what you want, what you like, what you want to become. And you're the only one in charge of kind of what you want to do next or your happiness or whatever that may be. And so fast forward throughout the years, I've always been kind of a person that's like tried to say, what do I want to accomplish? And like goals and things of that type. And one of the things that I realized is as you go through different stages of your life, things change. Like you're in school, you're graduating, you're dating, you get married, you have kids, you get a new job, you get promoted. All these different things cause this gap in your life where like, I'm here, I want to become this. And we're human beings. We all go through the same thing. We always live in this gap that I refer to as almost. And it can get overwhelming if you're not really thinking about the next step. And one of the things that I realized is with AI is that I could basically start really asking myself a lot of questions, getting some feedback and getting to like the root cause of my own objectives or my own standard, as I call it, where I wanted to figure out how I could become a more healthy, durable, functional person that lives well into their 80s on their own rules. It wasn't a goal. I didn't want to lose 30 pounds. I wanted to change my trajectory in my health. And the same thing applied for work stuff that we can get into as far as how I can use AI to have a conversation, to really kind of a thought partner, to pose different scenarios, but being honest with myself. And when you're talking to yourself and getting some good feedback, it really does open some doors up that you may not have thought about. And I joke about it like 13 bad ideas may yield the one that opens up the door that you really want to go down.
So you were actually having this dialogue with AI. Would you use Claude or ChatGPT?
I played around with a few, but ChatGPT is the one that I've ended up on because it really is, for me right now, is a really good thought partner. Claude seems to be a little bit better of a writer, but I wasn't using it to write a better email. I was actually looking at it to interrogate kind of my own, where I was and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to become. And it became an evolution or an iteration that kind of helped me.
And you did it at a particular time doing a particular activity. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the first kind of this approach or 283 was about my health. And there's, because of the way that I was raised, having ADHD, I created a lot of mnemonic devices that could help me do my job and be able to understand use. If you have a company that has a lot of massive amount of information, I need to distill that down, understand it, and then restructure it to deliver it to you to where it becomes consumable. So a lot of the skills around discovery were there, but one of the things that I wanted to do, my mom got sick in this particular time period. I was getting a new boss, a new CRO. The ski season wasn't really that good, so I was in the bars and restaurants a lot. And so I wanted to get out of my own way. And like, it's hard to say, I want to lose 30 pounds. And I really just applied everything that I kind of had talked about is like, I needed to define a becoming statement. And it was all about being durable, healthy, and functional well into my 80s on my own rules. And that's very specific. I picked a date that I wanted to stop negotiating, March 28th, 2022. And I basically said 1 hour today will give me 24 more hours later in life. And then I wanted to kind of define a standard to say every decision that I make says, will I move towards that standard or away from that standard if I have that pint of Ben and Jerry's? And we know the answer to that one. So it really became very easy for me to understand. We can get into a little bit more of the details about 283, but specifically, I loaded in a lot of my body telemetry data, a lot of my health data, a lot of my weight equipment, where I was physically, and said, I'm going to sign up for 3 Spartan races. And I picked this date and I moved forward. And so it came up with a plan for me on not how do I lose 15 pounds? How do I create a standard that I execute every day? Because I do believe that people don't rise to their goals, aspirations, or dreams. They fall down to the daily things that they do and what I call the standard. So with that being said, I would actually be maybe when I was going out for a walk as part of the training that I was doing, or run or whatever I was doing, I would do walk and talks, and I would literally just take out my phone, or I have a little recording plod device that sits on my wrist, and I would just start talking, whatever I felt, like anything and everything. And it really is kind of liberating because it's almost like journaling without writing.
Yeah.
You're actually
Yeah.
moving. And then, I kind of modified a lot of the way that I did it. Like normally when I would come home, I would like take the recording, I'd put it in there, I'd be like, interrogate this. And it would come back and give me some summaries. And it would basically like, you're ruminating on the past, or like some of the things that you're talking about are way too deep. We need to kind of pull back because there's a lot of variables that get in the way of you wanting to take the next step. Let's take a step back and say, well, what is the next step? And it's not, what do you want to know? What do you want to do? It's like, think about your identity. Like, what do you want to become? Like, what excites you? So long story short, over the past 4.5 years, I've been having conversations with myself. I've been having conversations with this tool. And it's kind of funny. It's after about 2 years into it, I said, I'm sick and tired of calling you chat. You need to name yourself. And I challenge you to name yourself. And it was kind of funny. I uploaded the transcript and it gave me the summary of everything that I talked about. And we've kind of created different areas I call pillars, like where they go. Like the pillars that I have are my journey, how I'm experiencing my life, my vessel, which is my body, my passions, which are like things hobbies that I'm interested in that continue to me learn and grow. My foundation is my family. Work is really what I do for work, but I want to kind of align it to more helping people. And that my investments are, how do I live? How do I save for my kids, and how do I leave a legacy for them that they might be able to, have a little bit of burden, not only money wise, but also life wise and experience wise. So all of these things started kind of morphing into themselves. And as I was having these conversations, the agent came back. He goes, I take that challenge and I'm going to name myself Vector, because Vector is about action, alignment with force and magnitude. It was fitting to what I was trying to do because I wanted to make 1 degree change and do that consistently so it compounds over time. And really for the lifting and the health part, it was 1 hour of working out, stretching, or lifting every day, no excuse. And when I did, that's what I've been doing for 4 years, not perfectly, because the cool thing about a standard is if you have a bad day and you need to take the day off, that's great. The 24-hour clock resets at midnight. You get another chance the next day to do it. Where a lot of people, if they go to say, I got to lose 15 pounds, they miss 2 or 3 days, they ate a big meal, and boom, it's off the reservation. They're like, oh, I'll start on Monday. And then they're caught back into the negotiating with themselves. So the biggest thing was feeling comfortable having a conversation and feeling comfortable getting feedback. And a lot of people talk about AI. Oh, they're only going to tell you what you want to know. You have the ability to almost define how you want this technology to respond to you or to talk with you. And I was very direct. I said, no BS, give me it direct. And if I'm going off the reservation, pull me back in and align me to the things that we've talked about. So long story short, it was a progression, but it was also the catalyst of this after 25 years of kind of being inconsistent on work and family and getting in shape. This was the one thing for me that made it very easy. And maybe a little foray into the 283 is the 283 is the 2 selves, the 8 loops, and the 3 forces with the degree signal, which is really the checking, meaning you are currently here, your current self, and your future self is here. If you don't change anything in a year, what's the only thing that changes? Time. So how much time are you willing to bet on yourself or not on yourself before you know it's 5 years later and you're in the same exact spot? That kind of came to the negotiating self and the becoming self, where like, am I going to sit here just playing with my mind, or am I going to sit here planning on who I want to become?
Yeah, it's almost like the opportunity cost, right?
Yeah,
Of not
exactly.
doing anything. So how does it work and how does someone use 283?
So the first part about this is, what I've kind of did myself is I really kind of sat down and I was like looking across my life. I'm like, what is the most important thing? I kind of talk to people. I'm like, what do you go to bed thinking about? What do you dream about? Or what do you wake up like on top of your mind? And it could be very small. I've talked to people who are like, I just want to become a person that gets up and walks 2 miles a day. I'm like, okay, cool. What's the problem? I can't get out of bed. I'm like, let's remove the 2 miles and let's focus on the 2 feet, get out of bed. And really the first part is like, when you think about where you are and you think about who you want to become, pick something that is relatively focused on who you want to become, whether you're passionate about it or whether you kind of want to learn something or whether you want to kind of change the way that you operate. Yeah, I've been doing this for 4.5 years, so mine is a bit more evolved and advanced, and I keep track of a lot of different things mentally now because I don't need to really like write things down. But the first step is really think about something like when people are coming out of college, or if the people are wanting to change jobs, it's like, don't say, what am I good at? What do I want to do? Really start asking, what do I want to become? Because that becoming statement starts bringing up, like, what are your passions? Like, what draws you to something? What really gets you excited? And if you think about those things and you list that thing down, you will then get an idea. Like for me, I had a father who had Parkinson's for 12 years, and I saw him go from a big, healthy 6'2" person to 12 years later, what Parkinson's does. And I'm like, if I can control that. So my becoming statement is very crystal clear. It's not a target to lose 15 pounds, because then I'm like, well, what am I going to do then? It's really, I want to create something that I can consistently do every day. And that's like aligning my identity with what I want to become to a standard that I'm willing to commit to every day. But then my behaviors follow through on that. And then the outcomes have been more consistent over the last 4.5 years. And let's just say the last 20 years.
Take the information, the data, and how do you play it back to people?
So initially it was just, I probably talked to over 100, 120 people over the last year as I've kind of been doing this more actively and being a bit more vocal about what I've been doing. But it's kind of like a discovery session when you're talking to a company, is like really just an open dialogue and conversation, what's top of mind. And that's kind of where it started. And then as I evolved the whole 283 thing, I was able to, especially in the professional world, I was able to take a snapshot of the LinkedIn profile and basically say, does your identity align with what people see of you? And it's been a pretty interesting process where I've been able to kind of help people see that they do this job and this is what they present to the world, but what their recommendations and what people see within their posts and their comments is that they're a different person. Anybody can kind of do it if they want to. The difference is that I have this 283 approach that's got a lot of IP behind it. But if you really wanted to look at yourself, is like, just take your LinkedIn profile from what you write. That's what you're putting out there. That's your current self. That's your negotiating self. But if you listen and you read some of the recommendations that you get from other people and some of the posts that you made and maybe some of the comments, that's people that are actually interacting with you. And that's what the perception is of you. And the interesting thing, there are people that have it really well aligned, but there's a lot of people that put this up here because I'm a operational tactical person, but their identity is actually something that's more innovative and strategic. And no matter how many operational tactical roles they take, they'll never actually be interested and passionate. And I do believe, and there's been studies around this, if people's identity is married to their standards, they're more successful at actually executing different tasks or objectives or goals because they do the consistent things over time. And the first part about it was the mirror.
And then once they see that they're misaligned, you help them see that, put up that mirror. Then what happens?
So it's interesting. Human nature, we negotiate with ourselves. The mirror lies. And I think I've talked to you about this before. The first part of it is like golf. Like the best way to get better at golf is be honest with your scorecard. You get a 10, write a 10. You get a 2, write a 2. And that's kind of the whole 2 cells piece, is really being honest with yourself so you know where to aim. The second part is, if you know where to aim now, and it could be a small little thing or it could be something bigger, is you need to become aware of what detracts you. And there's these things called the 8 loops of negotiation, or what I call the 8 locked in loops. And it starts with like minimizing. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I'll look at it tomorrow. Or like, oh, Jimmy's got it a lot worse. Or people escape. They go eat, or they go drink, or they go work out, or they get away from what it is. And those are really designed to protect you, because human beings want to be comfortable. It's our mind that protects us. But then we cross over to this false progress, where we stay busy with no alignment. It's probably the number one thing that I see, is that people work. But I say, okay, they'll be like, well, what are you doing? And they'll tell me, I go, okay, where are we going? Little less direct. And then I say, well, what do you want to become? Crickets. So this is one thing I learned years ago, Yusuf. One woman who was a senior level HR person doing a speech, she goes, the average person spends more time every year planning their vacation than they do on their careers.
That's right.
And that is something I found incredibly powerful, because with the tools and the technology that we have, we can do so much research with AI, but the precursor is, do we know where we want to go and who we want to become to aim? Then are we aware? Because the false progress stuff is about really being busy with no direction, but also being the tomorrow loop. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it Monday. How many people have you heard say, oh, I'm starting my diet on Monday? That's probably
That's
the
right.
50th time that they've done it. And then you get into the consequence loops, which are really kind of about drifting. You're drifting away from what you want. And then
Yeah.
you start like withdrawing. You're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or it's not my time. And then some people just kind of say, oh, I can't do it, and they forget it. And they basically
Yeah.
erase that particular thing, where I do believe that there are a lot of people, we hear a lot of people like, oh, bring your authentic self to work. That's awesome. But I think a precursor to their authentic self is, do they actually know themselves, and do they actually feel comfortable with that identity of what they want to become? And there's a lot of different topics about that conversation, but I really do believe the second part is becoming aware of things that derail you and then owning it. Like for me, it's like a minimization or avoidance. If I don't want to look at something like my bank account, I ain't going to look at it. If I keep busy, and I grew up in a generation where you grind, rub some dirt on it, power through it, but where are you going? And the third one is like the tomorrow, like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And those are basically the middle ones are kind of dangerous, because you're working, you have a plan, but you're
Yeah.
not
You feel
executing.
you feel productive and
Yeah.
you feel constructive and you're like, I'm doing something, so I must be on the right path.
Yeah, and so those two first parts are like really becoming like figuring out where to aim and figuring out like aware as far as where it derails it. But the one thing I actually do want to go back, the opening part about this is something I refer to as the standard within. Every single one of us has every single thing we need to be successful based upon what we want to become. We have it in us, or we can go out and learn. And the other part is like, then you figure out where you want to aim, and then you become aware of what derails you. Then you kind of morph into, okay, now I need to get aligned, because alignment
Yeah.
is a critical part of this whole process.
Is that the three?
Yeah, that's the third part, which is really about clarity, discipline, and accountability. And the really interesting part about this is that, and I've done a lot of thinking about this, is clarity is about the two selves. You know exactly what you want to become. It can iterate, but you have a really good idea. Discipline is now you know what you need to do because you know what derails you. And then the third part is accountability. And that's really the alignment part. I need to figure out, and the reason why you have clarity and discipline, because when you have that and they intersect, you get focus. Now I'm crystal clear on what I want, what I need to do. And then from discipline to accountability, you actually have consistency. Because I'm holding myself accountable, because I'm looking in the mirror. And here's the cool thing about the AI. I actually have update conversations with it like every week. And it will tell me, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. Or it will basically look at some of my biometric data and be like, well, you obviously didn't do what we planned because your data is telling me otherwise.
It's
But
holding
then,
you accountable.
yeah. And then accountability and clarity, you have ownership. And going back to the poem of my friend called True Meaning, the only person in charge of this ride is you. And so you need to own it. And really this Venn diagram was designed to kind of put live my standard right in the middle. And I thought long and hard about this. Like I could say, live your standard, Yusuf, but like, what does that mean? Like, I think live my standard, what I want people to walk away with is, if you look at your world, the two cells, the 8 loops, and the 3 forces, you will then have the ability to look in the mirror and say, how am I going to live my standard? Like the ownership is yours. And my is a small word, but now it's whatever this framework is, you get to apply it to whatever situation that you're in. I've done a lot of different thinking and talking, and it really is adaptable and flexible, but it empowers you to own your own journey. And that's really important because we try to emulate other people, but sometimes it doesn't work and we can't figure out why. But this is really
That's right.
the lens on yourself.
I really like how you talked about it's not about where you want to go, it's what you want to become. And I really like what you said about the mirror, the two selves, and the drifting away. So essentially, when you're drifting away from yourself, who you really are.
Yeah.
And you're becoming something else. And that's scary because that's the last thing we want to do toward the end of our lives, and is to, hey, I became something that I naturally wasn't. And that's where I spent most of my life. So that's scary. A lot of the points that you made resonated with me, and I think this is pretty powerful. What's next with 283?
So it's an interesting thing for me is, one, I really believe that there's so many different people out there that are kind of like talking about this, and the world that we've gone through has changed so much in my working career. Like the way that we used to go to work in a suit when we first started to now we're working remote and we're kind of working out of our houses and things of that type. So we have to adapt. And there's also 4 different generations that are selling and 4 different generations buying. And I think being aware of those is critically important. And I have zero interest and alignment to the generations. Yeah, there's probably things that are similar, but like if you're a hard worker at 25, doesn't mean that you're going to meet a 65-year-old that's the same hardworking person. And it has nothing to do with age. It's the personality. And I think that that's one of the things that we as a society have an opportunity to do as companies, as leaders, as individuals, individuals or even coaches or mentors is really get to know a person and be able to give them guidance based upon their identity and what standards that they want to live by so they can become what they want to become. And then the behaviors and the outcomes is a byproduct of the hard work up front. And everything that we talk about is like when I kind of talked about the golf analogy, and then the mirror lies to us. We got to figure out, become aware of that. The third one is a demon and the demon's gate. Every single part of change and learning is about being uncomfortable before you get to the other side. And not one person I've ever met has ever outrun their demon, meaning people give up right before it gets easy. They give up because that's when the hard part is. And that's the part that I think AI helps us with, is it can kind of help guide us in a way based upon our unique stories to give us some ideas or some steps that could get us through that other side. But you have to commit with a plan, and you got to run through that gate to get to the other side. And then the last part is the degree signal. And it's really designed to basically be like a compass, and that compass needle. And we're not saying do a 180. It's like 283 is really about make 1 degree change, but that degree change allows you to have a standard, drive the behavior consistently over time, and it compounds. It's no different than, you investing in your 401k. It's going to be very different 40 years later than it is now. But more importantly, I think that we get to enjoy the ride more if we're more aligned with ourselves. And that's one of the biggest things that I'm really taking away over the last 4.5 years for me. Anecdotally, I could sit here all day, but also I could quantifiably show you some of the health data, as well as some of the business and opportunities that doors have been opened up for me, because I basically said I've learned a lot. And I talk about, you can't manufacture scars. You got to go out and earn them. And I have a couple of good ones that, I went the wrong direction and I turned around, but I had something the foundation I could go back to. And that's been probably the most liberating. And it took a lot of pressure off me, because I think the world we're living in, people have expectations that they have to be a certain thing at a certain time in their lives with a certain amount of money or clout or title. And I don't want to say it's bullshit, because there are people that do fabulously well, but I do believe that we are in a world that's changing so quick that you need to give yourself a little bit of grace and understand it's going to take a little while to get where you want, but you could have fun doing it versus just grinding through it. Not to say that hard work's not needed, and not to say it's going to suck some days and it's going to be easier on other days, but there is something about aligning your identity with your standard to who you want to become that takes a little bit of that, painful edge off, that you can start enjoying the process versus just going through it.
Like I said, powerful stuff, Brian. I can't wait to see where you're going to go with it next. And if people want to reach out to you, have more conversations about 283 or about your experience, they can find you on LinkedIn. And I am so glad that we got to spend this time together, Brian, and I can't wait to see what happens next in your journey.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. And not only LinkedIn there, but also one of the things that I really found out is Live My Standard handles on all the Substack, Threads, and Instagram, and TikTok, and YouTube. That is my handle. Live My Standard is across all
Live
of
My
those.
Standard. Okay,
So if you
got
do
it.
the social media stuff, and I try to post, every other day to kind of just get people thinking about, how all of this stuff gets together. And more or less where I'm looking at this is I want to kind of help people navigate the life that we're in based upon some experiences and scars that I have, but also with AI, it's not just something that's going to help you write better emails or orchestrate an autonomous workflow for order management. It can actually be a good thought partner for you to pressure test some of your thinking, but also give you some good feedback. And that's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not going anywhere. It's actually going to be more infused in our day to day. And I'll leave you with this. Once everyone becomes superhuman, it's going to be the humanity in you that makes you unique and relevant and personal, that people are going to truly see who you are. And it's going to be a lot easier if they see that versus a lot of people just using technology for technology's sake. And I think that's the fun part, is how is this technology going to help us become better people and better humans and better people to work with?
Awesome. Brian, thanks so much for spending time with me today. And I'm sure our audience got a lot out of this. And Live My Standard. I'm sure a lot of folks are going to go out and check it out. I know I will. So thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much. Have
We'll
a
see
great
you
weekend.
soon.